Uh-huh.
Or any other type of pause like that. and you'll probably become very intoxicated in about the first 15 or 20 minutes.
That's true. Very true. Well, we welcome you guys to form all kinds of games around the podcast. That's fine. Letter number 13 comes from Heath McCoy, and he says, great interview with Bart Walsh. Next time, ply him with JD and get him to talk about the things he wouldn't talk about before. His exit from the band, the debauchery backstage. I can only imagine the dirt that lies therein. And yes, I think Bart has a book in him, to be honest with you, Heath. I'm sure he's got more dirt than Motley Crue because he was out touring the world with Dave, and I'm sure there's all kinds of stuff. We tried to get him to give you guys some tidbits as much as he could, and the stories he gave us were good. But my God, you know that there's dirt in there, Dave, right?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt, and no doubt he will take it to his grave.
Yeah, I know. That's true. Letter number 14 comes from Brad Rusenrad, and he says, wow, I just watched some of the Van Hagar shows from 2004 on YouTube. They opened up with Jump, which was priceless. I went to the show in Florida. It was the funniest show I've ever seen, and I know Eddie was pretty messed up on that tour, but I really think Sammy was having a blast. It might have been a train wreck, but it was awesome. Bring back this lineup. Really, Sammy deserves credit. This shit is fucking legendary. And then he gave us the links. Yeah, there is the Sacramento show you can check out from 2004 on YouTube for sure. As part 1 and part 2, it's like the whole show. I think Sammy was in fuck it mode, to be honest with you, on that tour by the time he did that Sacramento show, and he was just trying to make the best of it. That tour was a train wreck. Oh, he says, I'm sorry, the 2015 shows were boring as fuck. So anyway, I really think 2015, they had some great set lists. It was a good show, but come on, dude. I can't imagine that you like it this loose and sloppy, because that was ridiculous. I mean, come on. I mean, that 2004, Ed was like not even playing the right songs sometimes. I mean, that was... Right, Dave? What do you make of this comment?
Well, to each their own. I will say when we saw that tour, it was early in the tour, so it wasn't quite a complete train wreck yet when we saw them. I think it was in Jersey, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was
correctly.
in Meadowlands, yeah, in June of 2004.
Right.
Yeah.
So it wasn't bad, but I mean, Sam was definitely giving it his all. He was singing, he was signing everything thrown at him. He was having a grand old time. Him and Mike definitely were, and I think they were, trying to, that's another drinking game. Whenever I say, so
there you go.
Everybody take a shot.
Take a shot.
But I think they were just overcompensating.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
For the fact that Ed was slacking.
Sammy was going out and playing like 3 acoustic songs. I was like, what is this guy doing?
Oh, I don't remember him doing 3.
Well, in that video he does.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's
okay.
almost like
All
he's
right.
covering. He's doing like 3 different acoustic songs. I'm like, what is this guy doing? That was the video link that he sent, and I was like, and it was really long. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe all this was in the show. It's incredible.
Interesting.
It's true. We're on to letter number 15 from Damian Alexander. He says, I saw Bart Walsh with David Lee Roth open for Bad Company in 1999 at the Reunion Arena in Dallas, where I was working for Sendin at the time. Anyway, it was a great show, complete with David Lee Roth making his appearance, accompanied by a bevy of cute girls who he had just grabbed up from the nearby Hooters. LOL. Total energy, and Walsh was terrific, as the entire band was. However, Walsh nor the band had the charisma of EVH. Then again, who could beat the original? I don't recall any of the stuff from David Lee Roth's recent solo album being played, which was sort of a letdown, but then again, a huge Van Halen back catalog, it was not a deal breaker for me. The other odd thing was after the promo stuff and photos featuring John 5, it was a head-scratcher as to who was playing guitar. But Bart Walsh did a dynamic job, and the band was tight as fuck. Don't get me wrong, I love Bad Company, but David Lee Roth and his band made Bad Company seem like a letdown. Seriously, I mean, Paul Rodgers is an incredible vocalist, and I love their songs, but it was the original lineup, and there was just no spark at that gig whatsoever. Just a bunch of guys going through the motions. They looked completely bored, especially Boz Burrell, who really looked ill. He was wearing some kind of vest that made him appear massively underweight and sickly. So after half of their set, I split for home because it was painfully boring and in an odd way very sad. Possibly one of the most boring, uncomfortable shows I've ever witnessed. Later, I just read why this was the case. Apparently, Paul was given the 5-star treatment by the managerial staff, flying in for gigs, top-of-the-line accommodations, while the rest of them had traveled together gig to gig in a van, and I'm guessing not the same quality accommodations. It was quite apparent if you paid any attention to these guys, because they hated being on stage with each other, which, obviously reflected on the crowd. Meanwhile, David Lee Roth and his band traveled together by bus and must have had fun judging by their expressions and attitude. All in all, it was a really weird show on all kinds of levels. Well, that is just poor planning. I really think that it was a mismatch. David Lee Roth is way too high energy to put before Badco. Yes, Dave likes to be with his guys and hunker down. Dave's not a prima donna. He can kind of roll with it and any sort of bust. And, his career was sort of in a free fall at this point, playing all Van Halen songs and ignoring his solo catalog. It was hard to tell where his head was at. It was sort of a weird mixed time. Dave and I saw that show. It was definitely a mixed bill that didn't put together, Dave. What do you think of this?
I don't know if it was a mixed bill because they're both classic rock acts.
That's true, yeah.
When we saw them, I don't remember seeing any animosity on stage between the members of the band. Not that I am a huge Bad Company fan, but I certainly know their more popular songs in their catalog. How can you not? They're classic rock staples.
Right.
And I thought they pulled it off. A very professional sounding band, and they did a great job. And Dave was definitely just doing Van Halen songs by then. This was 1999, if I remember correctly.
Right.
And this was right before the time he was getting together with Van Halen and trying again. So it was almost like he was auditioning for the band or saying to the band, I am ready to play with you guys and sing with you guys. And look, I can still do it, to the point that he wasn't doing anything off his latest album. But his latest album was a year old by that time. Because the album came out in 98. Right. He didn't tour at that time.
Right.
He wasn't touring till 99.
Right.
The album is old news, poorly distributed. And all this was just a shame because it was really good. The only song he did was Slam Dunk, and that eventually got slam dunked out of the set.
Right.
Because nobody really cared about it. And Dave realized that because the rest of it was all Van Halen except for Yankee Rose. And that was it. But that's what people want to hear.
Right.
And to Dave's credit, the one thing I remember, Dave, is that Dave was the opening act. I think he played for about an hour.
Yeah.
Bad Company came out, played at least an hour and a half.
Right.
And they only did 2 more songs than David Lee Roth did.
Right.
Because Dave was just banging them out one after the other. He didn't start talking until 5 songs in.
Right.
And he really kept it concise.
And very, very high energy.
Right. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we are at our favorite point of the night, our last letter, Dave, number 16. And yes, it comes from DFVH5150 from the Van Halen Links.
His name is also Dave, by the way.
Oh, it's Dave. Okay, another Dave. Okay, great. Awesome. Loved hearing more about Roth and John 5 and about the Dave circa era, 1999 to 2001. Never knew Bart was a good old boy. I'll tell you, I don't see how that 30-song box set that never materialized is not the Warner Brothers demos we already know. I'm sure better quality with maybe extra stuff thrown in like Eruption as mentioned. And Ted did produce that, didn't he? Well, this is, according to Eddie Trunk, sessions from the recording of the first album. So this is like, imagine a snapshot of what it was like being in the studio at Van Halen on the first album. Alternate takes, extra songs, joking around in between sets and songs and stuff. And the box set was apparently all overseen by Templeman produced stuff. So you know, that's the story. I'm sure all of that stuff exists for all of those albums, but that was the point that Eddie Trunk was trying to make. He said it was absolute gold and something that his listeners ask for all the time, and he heard it with his own ears, so it's no longer a rumor. It actually exists. The guy who was doing the project explained the whole thing to Eddie, played the thing for Eddie, you know, so it's all there. So what do you think, Dave?
Well, I do remember asking on the last podcast, so it's not the Warner Brothers demos that we've had for years. And apparently not. Eddie said, it wasn't those.
Yeah.
And I think he's a pretty big Van Halen fan. But either way, if it's stuff we never heard before, that's great. Even if it's the Warner Brother demos cleaned up.
Right.
I mean, take my money. Right. I would still pay to hear that stuff in awesome quality. But it's sitting on somebody's shelf somewhere, literally.
Right. I know, it's the truth. Well, that wraps up the mailbag segment. And we are on to our report from the Stones parking lot, where I talked to Vinny Pasculli and one of his friends who had some relationship with Roth. Not romantic, but just kind of ran into him and discussed things with him. So that's kind of cool. We'll talk a little bit there. There was a fun conversation. And we'll go into Dave and I completely breaking down the DLR Band album from 1998. And we have an exclusive interview with John 5, the guitarist on the DLR Band album. He has a new album out called Invasion with John 5 and the Creatures. I'm going to talk a little bit about that and all kinds of Roth stuff, the album that's in the can, all of his work with the DLR Band, and more than that. So it's all coming up next. Take a listen.
Don't ever ask me again why I'm not in Van Halen. I was thrown out. I was stabbed in the back and left for dead, And it wasn't, you just can't go back and hug and kiss those kind of people that do that to you.
And if you would like to send us a letter asking a question or making a statement or whatever you'd like to say, you can send it to ddunchainedpodcast@gmail.com.
Hey, this is Bart Walsh from the David Lee Roth Band. You're listening to Dave and Dave Unchained.
Pick up the top seller, Van Halen Rising, how a Southern California backyard party band save heavy metal. The new book by Greg Renoff. Learn about early history of one of America's most decorated rock bands. Renoff goes deep into the Pasadena roots of the Van Halen brothers, David Lee Roth and Michael Anthony. Go to vanhalenrising.com, where you can get autographed copies of the book, t-shirts, guitar picks, beer koozies, and more. vanhalenrising.com. Also available at amazon.com.
You get what you'll see on the videos, you get what you hear on the record, but you get a whole lot more. It's not laser beams. It's not hydraulics. When you buy a toy and you have somebody set up your toy in the corner and stand there and say, hey, what do you think of my toy? You know what your answer usually is. What you need is some simple things that take people to operate them. So we have a boxing ring. We set that up, and without giving away the whole trick here, a boxing ring mysteriously appears. And when you put a boxing ring in front of an audience, well, obviously, hey, what's it doing in my show? There's a little sense of humor there. But you combine it with an unpredictable kind of music and hit it with the right kind of lights, and you do it with your own finesse. It has a very jarring effect, and it's not the one that you might expect.
So we are here in the MetLife parking lot with the one and only Vinny Pasculli. He's here live and in the flesh. We're meeting for the first time. So Vinny and I are about to go see the Stones for their first show, which is the rescheduled show from June. They're playing August 1st. Vin, what's your feelings on the Stones tonight?
I'm looking forward to this very much. I mean, the Stones, one thing about the Stones, they never disappoint the Stones.
Yeah.
I mean, they put so much energy and thought into every show. They do the fan vote, which I don't know how legitimate that is.
Yeah, me too.
But they did, like Charlie Watts, for instance, wears different color socks. He wore red socks in Boston.
Right.
He wore yellow socks when I saw him in Pittsburgh. Mick always has something funny to say about the local region.
He's up on top of everything.
In 2005, he actually mentioned my hometown, Hoboken.
Oh, wow.
He says, who's here from Hoboken?
Wow.
Which was shocking.
Nice.
So they put a lot of thought into every city.
Absolutely.
And the Stones...
they do it right.
They're legendary in New York, as far as, their love in New York City.
Oh, yeah, so, of course. So now, as
as we all know, some other band could take a couple of cues from the Stones, right?
Yeah, well, not to mention, any initials VH.
Right, exactly.
I mean, the Stones are the model for what every band should be like.
Absolutely,
And,
constantly releasing old concerts and goodies for the fans.
Yeah, and, every city, they're putting out a different lithograph.
Right.
I mean, they have so much material, and